What was teenage you 100% rock solid absolutely certain wasn't just a phase, but turned out to be just a phase? That I'd be the first pro snowboarder / NBA player. I'm a moderately successful public school teacher. Snowboarder or NBA player? No, obviously a snowboarding NBA player. Snow jams. Well, I'd always pictured myself at 80 in trip pants and eyeliner. Turns out the pants were too heavy to be comfortable and the eyeliner was just because girls liked it. Ugh, I miss trip pants, but 15 years and my very own career later, and I still can't afford them. I 100% was sure I would be an author. I got a poem published in an anthology at 13. And I signed that shit, and handed the books out to people at my mom's work, like I was a celebrity. I carried around a little leather-bound notebook, and would write god-awful angsty poems and short stories. Turns out writing an actual novel that is worth reading is hard. I knew it would be hard. What I didn't expect was that it would be boring. Like, making up characters was fun. Figuring out how they'd react to different situations was fun. Running through dialogue and descriptions in my head. Coming up with a plot outline. Figuring out what scenes I'd need, and what order they should be in. All that stuff was fun. But the actual sitting down for hours and days and weeks on end writing that shit down. Tedious as fuck. It felt like all the fun, creative stuff was already over and now I was stuck doing an endless, boring homework assignment about it. I think I managed to pound out like 100 pages before I finally decided that, no, this was not something I needed in my life. It wasn't until a few years later, when I was able to actually play Dungeons and Dragons on a regular basis instead of just reading the books over and over and wishing I had friends to play with, that I realized that when I thought I'd wanted to be a writer, what I actually wanted to be was a dungeon master. You sound like a DM I'd love to have. Being obsessed with Incubus, Morning View, the irony being that my favorite track was just a phase. Great album though. Every song. My emo style and music tastes. I look back at photos and listen to some of those songs and think to myself, you dumbus. So cut my wrists and black my eyes. So I can fall asleep tonight or die. I went through a GD phase in college. Triggered because Star Wars GD Outcast had just been released for PC. I grew my hair long and braided the sides. Wore brown and grey robes, became vegetarian, carried a lightsaber, and occasionally mentioned I sensed disturbances in the Force. My GF at the time was almost completely unaware of Star Wars culture and thought I was developing schizophrenia. I'm impressed that you had a girlfriend during your GD phase. Maybe I need to get into it myself. She was my GF before I walked the path of the light side and was going through phases herself. The death metal was the only good music out there. Don't get me wrong, I still love it, but I've grown to appreciate all music. My older, by 20 years boyfriend. I was convinced it was true love when I was 15. You were 15. Dating a 35-year-old? Didn't anyone intervene? That's criminal. I'm so sorry to hear this. This is more common than you would think. I'm in high school. My desperate need to be a professional comic artist. Turns out I also enjoy work-life balance, and I'm fine with just being amateur artist. My engagement to a 23-year-old man, when I was 16. You alright? My love of music. I could not imagine a time when knowing all about artists and songs wouldn't be important. How old are you now, if you don't mind me asking? Thought for sure I'd be a goth for life. It's not a phase, mom. This is who I am. Still love Cyanuxy though. Being super Christian. I thought I'd always be so gung-ho about that, but as I got older I saw the flaws in the religion, and was turned away from it by the judgmental and narrow-minded individuals in it. Especially once my dad died, my connection to Christianity was very strained. Eventually, after graduating college, and seeing my mom marry one of the worst examples of a judgmental and closed-minded Christian, I gave up on following that path, and am now trying to find my own way, and make sense of the world around me apart from the Christian worldview. This was me too. I was super passionate about it. Going to a Christian college cured me of that. Now I'm an atheist, and my teenage self would be so appalled. I always thought I'd move to the city and work my way up in tech or finance. Oh joy, and have a house in a nice neighborhood with awesome neighbors. Fuck that. I now own 100 acres in New Mexico and have an established fine yard with absolutely no neighbors or kids. Just me, my wife, and my rattlesnakes. Sounds great up into that last part. Yeah, the wife really brings it down. I spent all of my inheritance on a Proxima video camera and other video kit. I was determined to be the greatest cameraman of all time. Now I can't even be bothered to take photos with my phone. And I wish I had that $5,000 too. Same but with podcast. Spent over $500 plus on mixing tables and cameras. Thought I was going to be the next Joe Rogan podcast host in my town. Then all my friends didn't show up. Now I can talk by myself. But I prefer friends to bounce ideals and thoughts. But their schedules didn't match up. No one showed up to my show. All my gears are just in the table collecting dust. Seriously depressing. No one showed up. $500 is a cheap education. I was going to be a rock star. It was the late 80s and rock music was everywhere from our movie screens to our Walkmans. I loved the look, the grandiosity of it all, and especially respected the talent it took. Well, I was all in, and didn't go to college because why would I need it? I was going to be a pro musician. For reference, I'm from Kentucky, and knew no one that had ever made it out as a pro musician, and therefore had no idea what was involved. But will let that stop you, right? Well, now I look back on that 30 years later and it absolutely was a phase complete with long hair and ripped jeans. I lack the prerequisite talent to write a song or perform at that level, so it's relegated to pipe dream status these days. It worked for Bill and Ted. All you need is a time machine and you'll be set. Being an atheist. I guess more being an obnoxious one. I remember 16-year-old me poorly debating a family member that was a preacher. Neither of us were making good points and we weren't going to change each other's minds. Now, I just don't care. If religion makes you happy, I'm happy for you. I also had my cringy 14-year-old atheist phase. Following atheist Instagram pages and all that shit. Now I'm 18 and this is one of those memories that taunt me when I can't sleep at night. Whereas I had a cringy Christian phase, I still look back on my behavior with embarrassment. I'm still a Christian now, but I hope that I practice what I preach by being a more decent person. Not quite teenage me, more like early 20s. But for me it was partying, adventure, drugs, travel, etc. The young free life. I figured I'd grow into one of those handsome free-spirited guys who has his shit together, while still maintaining a vibrant and adventurous life for a lot longer. Well, I've hit my 30s now, and have no interest in being that kind of guy. I grew out of it, and just feel bored when I think about returning to do a lot of that stuff. That's totally me. All that adventure stuff just kinda lost its appeal. Chillin' at home, and putzing around is kind of nice. Being depressed. And then you realize depression has robbed you of so much, even your youth. Not really fair, but I suppose there's no choice but to make the best of it. Fuck. W. Found Owen Wilson. The constant urge to have sex. Super not a phase, I've made it a lifestyle. But there will always be a small part of us still down with the clown. I don't even listen to ICAP and part of me is down with the clown. Hating my mom. I absolutely hated her. Yes, she was flawed, but as I have gotten older I understand her more, and why she made the life choices she did, and just how strong she truly was. I don't think she ever realized how truly amazing she was. My Anglophile phase. I was deep into Doctor Who and Sherlock, and I was one of those PPL who were convinced they'd move to Britain when they were older. I'm American, and I read a lot of British literature as a teenager. I started using British spellings, because I was just so used to seeing it that way. So cringy. That I'd never drink, and I'd never learn how to drive. Boy was I wrong. But can you do them both at the same time? My Little Pony. Friendship is Magic came out in 2011, along with the Britney fanbase, and 16 or 17-year-old me at the time went through a Britney phase for a while. I just remember going, huh, there must be something to this whole My Little Pony thing. Watched a few episodes out of curiosity, and fell in love. I wasn't as hardcore into it as some guys were, but I still thought the show was one of the best things ever at the time. I had 2 or 3 MLP t-shirts from Hot Topic as well as a Spike hoodie that looks like someone skinned him and turned him into a jacket. I followed the show pretty regularly, hung out on /r/My Little Pony and some other forum, I think it was Equestria Daily, I can't remember, and even had Bruni in my Reddit username up until I abandoned that account and made this username, which is dumb, but not quite as dumb as the old one. At some point in the break between the 4th and 5th seasons, my interest in the show totally scaled back for some reason and never really returned, though I do admittedly still have good memories of the show, and I'm still a tiny bit of a fan, and in case anyone's wondering, I can safely say that I never once jerked it to pony porn, or even looked at any for that matter. Did you happen to lose your virginity between seasons 4 and 5, mate? Being a lesbian, I only dated women up until I was 22. It was an adjustment, lol. Can you elaborate on this? I just think your story is interesting, because I'd never imagine doing this. It was just me coping with childhood abuse. I just didn't feel safe near men. I still like women, but I like men now too. I don't think that is a phase. You went from thinking you are lesbian to knowing you are bi. That's getting to know yourself better in my opinion. I agree. It's just everyone always called it a phase while I was growing up, lol. My love for drinking. I loved punk rock almost exclusively. Now I pretty much listen to all music. Some punk songs bring up some memories, but it's just not my thing anymore. I live in a reasonably socially progressive place, so coming out as gay in high school was no problem for me. I think probably I even gained a few friends from that revelation. Then it seemed a lot harder to tell people I fell in love with a woman a couple years later. Are you bi? Or did you just though you were gay at the time? I know some teens think they are gay/lesbian because they feel different from the rest due to not fall into the gender stereotypes. Turns out I'm non-binary and pan-bi. I'm really not clear on the difference. I just don't care what genitals or pronouns a person has. Pretty sure that's pan.